for library and information studies, much like the field, is very white. And most of my students are white women. Myself, I'm a white woman. No one's perfect. And that invariably means that we miss things. And so trying to be proactive in identifying that is important. And then also locating and encouraging community researchers is another big thing. I've been in contact with a librarian of one of the local high schools, East Berizo, to bring some students in to do a research project. Also, this actually came to me in the last session, there were some artists talking about their relationship between art and archives, and if we provide like a small stipend to encourage like recording artists to sample episodes of Frame All, like that could be a really cool way to bring them into the archive as well. So trying to identify and like act upon those opportunities is another big thing that we're trying to focus on. Chairman, would you like to share a few words with us?
How's everyone? Right on. I just get to presenting, ironically, the panel on NASA conservation. Last one, I appreciate this for that myself. I was reached back in Body because the Hampton House, this coalition is working to go with the freedom laws and agreement we use with us. It's kind of similar to the management with the citizens of power to the people. And I want to, we, on this chair at the Black Panther Party Cubs, a major campaign we had is to save and maintain the Hampton House, childhood home of Chamber Fred Hampton, in which our programs such as community refrigerator, weekly radio program, and what we refer to as survival programs occur right out of the Hampton House. Black Panther Party says information is raw material for new ideas. The information is raw material for new ideas. And we needed Freedom on Radio with us. In the similar spirit, the Black Panther Party had utilized the intercommunal Black Panther Party newspaper, which was, it impacted people throughout the world. In fact, our leadership, our New Orleans, Louisiana chapter of our present-day organization had said to me, as a child, he was illiterate. He was unable to read. However, the pictures and the drawings in the Black Panther Party newspaper, he was able to keep updated what's going on from every place from Africa to Vietnam to right in the streets of Chicago. I can't tell you how many, getting this information out with Freedom on Radio, how it impacts people. In fact, this past Wednesday, we had a case at Marquette Park for these children who were locked up, wrongly incarcerated in 1995, and we did the episode with them. And we kind of move on with a pivot. It might be people calling in from Cook County Jail, people calling in regards to electoral politics, people calling in different hip hop artists, people on the barbershop, pool halls, you name it. And we've been able to have a relationship and the way of theory and practice. So again, I'm honored and humbled that we have that going on, and also to archive it, because we say with us also a legacy is more important in your life. In so many cases, people attempt to, obliterate or malign legacies such as the Black Panther Party. And on so many occasions, we have to do damage control with people with the misinformation or lack of information. We heard about the Black Panther Party, as well as the present day. So I know this, but through Freedom on Radio, so they hit the communities as well as the colleges. So again, I'm honored and humbled to be here. Appreciate y'all so much. Yes, indeed. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Does the donate button on Save the Hampton House at work still work?
Yes, I forgot to mention that definitely,
I mean, it worked for me. I don't know, maybe you guys should check to see if it That's great.
And also cash out $, Save the Hampton House. Yes.
Actually, the Hampton House is currently being renovated into a community space, including a recording studio for Frame All to continue to be recorded and broadcast live in the Hampton House. And yeah, so this is our final slide. You can take a picture of that QR code and find these slides for your reference if you like. And yeah, I think at this time we can open it up for any questions if anybody would like to. I'm also the chair, so I'm getting online.
I just have a quick practical question. How do you, in this instance, obviously you're able to work with the podcast hosts to make sure that you aren't duplicating the efforts of someone else. How do you make sure that you're not doing that? And also, if you are not sure, how are you saving this? Are you doing it as a copy of something that exists out in the world or as the original object?
Yeah, that is a good question. Would it be easier if I bring the mic or if people line up? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. A way to, I'll say that, a way to make sure that archivists aren't double describing is at the beginning of the semester, everybody picks a year. And the series are arranged by year. So that cuts down on the confusion there of doubling up. What will happen sometimes is that every once in a while an episode is a rebroadcast, which is so funny because the students get so frustrated. I got an hour and a half in and I realized it's from 2024. I love it, but that has been successful so far. And I also encourage students to go back and review the records of previous archivists, which in a professional setting is not very MPLP of us. It's pretty time consuming, but recognizing that these are students and they're first time archivists, they can go back and sort of check the work of previous students to make sure it's up to snuff, and that it's not missing anything. And then this is stored as a duplicate. So ArchiveSpace has a field where you can put an external link to a digital object, and that's what we do. All of those links now need to be replaced because the website doesn't exist anymore. But and that also I think plays into the ownership question. Dominican doesn't own these episodes. These episodes are owned by Chairman and the Lady of Rage and probably Intellectual Radio. We just write a description that accompanies. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why this is a healthy relationship, is that we're not taking anything. And we're not asking to co-parent or anything. The materials stay with the creators.
So are you not storing the physical or the digital podcast itself? You're just looking out and now that it's broken, how are you going?
Now that the links are broken, how are you going to, where are they going to live in perpetuity if it's not in Dominican? I think I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there's a cub named Fundisha who has been, she caught the curve early and she started downloading web-hosted episodes. And so she has them, I'm not sure if it's on the cloud or an external hard drive, but she has it in external storage, and we're gonna copy those. So that, partially for storage, but primarily for student reference, so that they can use it to further describe. So then there would be 2 copies, but usage and replication and reference, and who gets to use it and for what. All of those questions, if they come to Dominican, would go straight to Chairman and the Lady of Rage.
This is more about transcription. I was wondering what you do with the inaudibles. I used to do legal transcription for a few years. I did a lot with the Innocence Project, and I know that those phones sometimes can be terrible. So how do you go about inaudibles? And also, have you heard of the program ExpressScribe?
I have not heard of ExpressScribe, but what I can say, when I did that full transcription, that was actually one of Chairman's longest episodes. That's also why it took me 8 hours. But again, preserving that content is what's most important, and if there was something that was inaudible, I wrote that. So it was in the transcription, and if I could blow that up, it would have been on 4 slides total for you to actually see the words from where you're sitting. That's why we wanted to provide you with some of the slides. If we couldn't hear something, if something was distorted, if we couldn't catch a name, we would essentially catch what we could, but then put it in parentheses. And so we did the best we could, and that's why we're really trying to work hard by advocating for this project to get better equipment. And so then the students will be able, you know, the incoming students will really be able to hear him clearly without that distortion in the background. And then also the students and Caitlin, they're getting the information accurate and correct, right? Preserving that history just as what Chairman had asked us to do. You know, if we're gonna do this project, we wanna do it right. And so we come across instances and avenues that we have to pivot and think about and, you know, retract and go back. So now I'm sure there's going to be a select group of students that Caitlin's gonna choose to take out all of those Blog Talk Radio links because they're no longer functional. But I haven't heard of Express Script. Subscribe. I'll look into it. From the ones that I quickly tested before we were gonna present to you, TurboScribe was the best. I mean, it caught almost everything that Chairman had said directly because I was listening as the computer was transcribing it, and then I went through to check it. And that's what we had to do originally in 2022 because we weren't, you know, AI software wasn't even like a thing back then. It was thought of and it was kind of available, but not really. So we were looking at transcription software, and I've worked in the medical field, so I know exactly what you're talking about by like having to transcribe everything. And we just kept running into roadblocks where it wasn't providing accurate details, and it was messing up on simple things like, you know, 2 tin cans and a string. So it's, you know, Otter AI was spelling out the number, and it should have wrote it out. So it's good to have it for your knowledge as a resource tool, not a dependent tool, which I think we can all agree that AI is not going to do our jobs for a very long time, so we still have work to do, which is great. But that's a good question.
You mentioned keeping things up to snuff. I was wondering how you went about that in terms of training the students specifically for this collection and this community archives, especially when you're dealing with extremely long transcripts and specialty subject headings, especially local subject headings. How do you make sure that students across a huge number of episodes, potentially topics, are able to kind of keep some kind of conciseness with, you know, how they're transcribing things, but also the subject terms?
I am lucky to have previous students who were very good, and so I can show them sort of episodes to serve as models to say, you know, this has all of the elements, this is a level of description that is both useful to a researcher, but also not overwhelming for you to create. One of the things that has become more and more apparently necessary is narrowing of terms, because every episode could be tagged with police violence, or the Black Liberation Movement, or you know, Fred Hampton, and at some point, if every episode has that tag, then it's not really relevant to a researcher. So encouraging that narrowing was also a big thing. So you know, we're talking about Fred Hampton's involvement in the Rainbow Coalition, or Fred Hampton's assassination, or Fred Hampton's brief career at Aldi. He worked at Aldi for a little. Narrowing by event, era, geographical location, and then the indexes I review mostly. Luckily, the students I've had have been really diligent, and they tend to put too much rather than not enough. So you know, these are not scripted episodes. Nobody's giving a speech. Like, people are talking off the cuff, often emotionally, often while they're like running out of minutes. And so topics change quickly. And if I see a student time stamping every 15 seconds, then we're going to bring that into a class discussion and say, you know, put yourself in the mind of a researcher. You know, would this episode, if I'm researching Marcus Garvey, would that be relevant to a researcher, like modern attitudes towards Marcus Garvey? Not really. His name was just mentioned in a list of other individuals. So really, I think like foregrounding the mind of the researcher helps a lot with that. And I also really encourage students to take their own time. I say like, if you can archive one episode a week, excellent. Like, if that's the pace that you're working at, that's all good. Episodes are usually between 90 minutes and 2 hours. And if you need to sit with it for a week, then do that. There is urgency, like we want to do right by our community partner and continue work, but we don't need to rush, and in our confusion, leave things out or double our work or anything like that. So I encourage like a slower, more intentional pace, putting yourself in the shoes of the researcher, and bringing questions to class discussion. And usually that marks all of the boxes, give and take.
So we have a collection our Black Studies department did in the 1970s. It was a radio show, obviously not a podcast. But one of the pushbacks I've gotten is, in terms of transcribing them and putting them up, is rights issues and concerns. So I was wondering if you are addressing that, or if the callers know, that it's going to be transcribed and everything, or how you're approaching that.
That's a good question. That was one that we brought to chairman, and students brought that up too. And sort of the answer we got was like, well, they know that this is being broadcast live on the internet, and that there's a live stream, and that the live stream will live on social media forever. And so that sort of became acceptable to pursue, not only because it was broadcast live, but because those recordings both on Facebook and on YouTube will exist for as long as those accounts do. I don't know if that's professional standard, but that's what we're doing. Cool. Okay, if there's no more questions, we are 1 minute early. This is excellent. You're welcome. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello.
Now, what you got to say about you? The cracker got MSU.
You said what?
What you got to say about the cracker talking to you now?
He lies still. I don't know what that was. Is something on my face? Oh. Oh.
Yeah, there's about 130 and then in the summer we have that might have
Hello.
I had to drop a couple classes at one point, so now I'm moving.
But it's moving, moving forward in the short term, on the still and so on.
Don't like to,
Because also
but I mean, life happens.
cues that are not
Probably couldn't this.
we can research into
But I'd say maybe like half of 5 or 6.
Do you guys want to?
Sure.
You can't pull it back up this time.
Chair, you wanna you still live?
Yeah, you get this picture coming. This history.
Yeah.
Okay, you